All right, guys, thank you so much for coming to the Eyre Writing Center Fall Open House and spending this lovely Saturday with me. I am actually in New York and it's really nice out. So wherever you are in the world, welcome. I'm going to play a very short video first, an intro sort of on who we are, and then we will get right into it. This is a webinar format in Zoom for those of you who are unfamiliar with it. So basically, there is not sort of live interaction right now. You're just going to hear me talk. Sorry, you're going to hear me talk a lot, actually. But you can drop your questions in the chat Q&A in either English or Chinese or whatever language you want. And we will be answering it, either myself live at the end of the presentation or April, who is the EWC community in the background. She'll be able to answer it via chat as well. So let's begin.
Introducing the new Eyre Writing Center. This is Patrick. Patrick wants to become a better writer, but doesn't know where to start. Should he work on his grammar first? His reading skills? This is Rita. Rita is reading an advanced book, but is having some difficulty understanding it. This is where we at the Eyre Writing Center come in. We believe that strong writing skills are the bedrock of being a strong thinker. We take the guesswork out of writing by using a highly personalized approach. For Patrick and Rita, we offer introductory classes every week to teach them how to build sentences, form paragraphs, and craft essays. Additionally, we understand the importance of grammar and offer beginning to advanced level grammar classes. We also want our community to explore the liberal arts by reading, writing, and debating literary classics. At EWC Workspace, we know that students frequently need guidance in writing. Our tutors' doors are open for all your writing needs. Students can even write articles for our publication, the EWC Journal. Simply speaking, Patrick and Rita are not alone. There are so many students who want guidance in writing, a topic often overlooked in today's education system. EWC is here for you. Attend our open house or contact our team and join the hundreds of families who are already part of the EWC family. www.eyrewritingcenter.com. Questions? Jane at eyrewritingcenter.com. Introducing the new.
All right, so. Okay, I hope you liked that little clip. Thank you so much for watching it. And for all of you who just joined, welcome. My name is Jane Chen, as many of you probably already know me, but just for those of you who are new, I am going to introduce myself. I always actually start off with this. I am a scholarship student. Okay, now this is actually very important because it really informs who I am and really the philosophy of EWC. Now EWC, the Eyre Writing Center, first of all, it is named the Eyre Writing Center because I was actually named after Jane Eyre, the book. That is 100% true. People think I'm making this up. I'm really not. I was truly named after Jane Eyre. It was like meant to be. Anyway, so I was very fortunate to go to the Trinity School in New York City, which was known for really high quality liberal arts education. And I just felt really blessed to have small seminar classes that really focused on literature, on history, and that's how I fell in love with history. So when I went off to college, I actually concentrated in history at Harvard. Now, the thing is that when it comes to math and the education of STEM and accessibility of STEM resources, you could put 30 kids in a classroom with a teacher in the front, just have graders, see if you got the problem right or not. But you can't do that with writing. It's very personal, it's very subjective, and frankly, it's pretty hard to teach. And not everybody can grade it. So that's why it's so hard. And so I actually, after Harvard, I graduated in 2012 as a history major, studying financial history, actually. And I went off to Wall Street for 10 years. I was an investment banker and then a hedge fund analyst. So a lot of people are like, were you a teacher before the Air Writing Center? I was like, I'll be very honest. I is not a teacher. I was actually in finance. But first of all, at my core, I am a lover of the liberal arts. I am a student of the liberal arts and logical thinking. Okay, so that is something I really want to emphasize as EWC. My goal is really to bring writing down to a science. Now, I actually volunteered as a writing instructor during the entire time that I was on Wall Street, and I would read hundreds and hundreds of students' college essays. Remember the, yeah, you're all gonna have to do that someday. The personal statement for college. Now, I actually don't do it anymore. I did it for fun because, like I'm a dork like that. And then I would read all these essays and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, so many problems should have been addressed 10 years before you started writing your college essay, because frankly, when you're a senior, that is like the only time when all the parents and all the students come together and it's like, we need a good essay. But that's not how it works, right? That's like not how it works. So that is actually why I started the Eyre Writing Center in the beginning of 2020. I started it pre-pandemic. Everybody's like, oh, it was so good. You had great foresight with like COVID and moving online. No, no, no. I started before the pandemic. It was in person. I don't think any of my, well, first of all, the open house is for new students. For the students from my first term, you'll remember, I'm old school. I made everybody bring paper notebooks into class. I would give them handouts they have to write. You'll be surprised. Their spelling isn't so good when they're not writing with spell check. Anyway, now it's been what, a year and a half later, and oh my God, I am so, so blessed to have such an amazing EWC community and supporters and teams. We have, cumulatively from the beginning, we've had, I think, well over at this point, 600 enrollments with over 300 families in 25 states. And I am just so, so thrilled and blessed to have so much amazing supporters along the way. Truly, you're so wonderful. And for all of you who are joining, because you probably have seen me travel and drive across the United States in the last couple of months, welcome. I think I was in, gosh, Western New York, Ohio, through Indiana, over to Boston. So if you're coming from there, hi, hello. I was also in Houston earlier this year because I really try to meet with my families and students to understand your needs and see how I can help. And so I just hope you can tell that this is really what I truly love. I left finance because I wanted to really make a difference in this world. I just want to know that one day when I leave the world, I just hope that I made it a better place than when I joined. And apparently I thought that writing was my true calling. So thanks for hanging out with me. Now, that is basically who we are. So there you go. That's your little orientation. Okay. And then I want to talk about the EWC ecosystem because it's complicated. I know. I am so sorry when everybody is like, you have all these different classes. I don't understand. I'll walk you through it. I know it's complex. Please bear with me. Thank you. Then I'm going to take you through a sample lesson of how to read. Okay, this is really important. I love this lesson. We're going to go through a segment of the MLK I Have a Dream speech, and you're going to see how I read. Okay. We're then going to do a mini grammar lesson. Guys, remember when grammar was all the rage? No, it never was. That's the problem. You guys don't know your grammar. Well, I'm sorry, maybe some of you do, but especially now that people use and rely on Grammarly. I mean, God, like back in my day, I didn't have an email until like high school. All right. So we couldn't rely on amazing AI technology, and neither should you. So learn your grammar, okay? And then I actually am going to walk you through the EWC portal. I don't know why I've never done this before. I realize I should really show people what happens like on the back end, because we actually have a pretty amazing technology infrastructure that I just somehow have always forgotten to show people during the open house. But it also helps you go through like what our tech platform looks like, and I hope you will enjoy that. So that is going to be agenda for today, and let's start with the ecosystem. This is our writing and reading ecosystem. I really wanted to emphasize writing over reading, but the fact is you can't write without reading, so I just kind of put it together. All right, but the intro series that you see on the left really is the fundamentals of writing. Now, what does that mean? First of all, we're going to walk through it, okay? You'll listen to me later talk about it. But the idea is that you focus on how to build sentences, paragraphs, and writing assignments. The primary writing assignments in the intro series is a personal narrative, which is more on the creative side, and a biography that turns into a research paper, which is more on the expository and analytical side. That's my side. I'm definitely like the analytical one. Not as creative, but very analytical. I was a history major, not an English major. Okay. So that is going to be the core. I would say like 80% of our students probably start in intro 100, 150, progress up to 200, 250, and the other 20, 30%, it starts around in grammar. Okay, especially grammar one for those of you who are quite young. So those are the two starting points at EWC. Then they go through something called the matrix. Basically, in your intro classes, we give detailed report cards, okay? We give two report cards, one is a midterm, one in the final, okay? And the matrix basically kind of determines where you stand in terms of your writing ability and then places you into one of the core levels, okay? But before I get into the core, I want to talk about the matrix. Now, I think I told you I've had over 300 families, okay, more on the enrollment side, but families, let's say over 300. I have talked to almost every single one of them. Yeah, that's why I really understand one-on-one. Yeah, one-on-one, because I really want to understand what our families need. And one of the main questions that I've heard, and believe me, I've heard a lot of questions. One of the main questions I've heard is, how can my student get better at writing? And I'm like, that's a good question. I have several answers to this, but think about it. What exactly do you need to get better at, right? That's like saying, I want to get better at science. It's like, where do you even start with that question, right? The thing is that in science or in math, you kind of know the discrete categories and components. In science, you're like your biology, your physics, your chemistry. You progress like this. You have to think this way. There are set curricula. In math, you're like your addition to subtraction that builds to multiplication, division, trigonometry, da, 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 da. There's an entire path. The problem with answering a question like, how do I get better at writing, is that there's no map, right? How can you get from point A to point B when you don't even know the map of where you have to go? That's been the main problem and the difficulty in teaching writing. And so basically what people have been doing is you pick a straight line, you go, and you have no idea if you're going the right direction. That's why it's so scary to like learn ELA, English Language Arts, okay? So what I have tried to do is standardize it. I'm trying to standardize it through the EWC matrix. Basically, I'm saying that, okay, In our ecosystem, in the crazy brain that I have, that is EWC ecosystem, there are these 10 categories that you need to know. Okay, and these are the categories you need to progress in. So, for example, proper grammar and spelling standards, determining subtext, right? Remember how you say, like, read between the lines, determining subtext. Then you have to analyze and evaluate various media, right? That's why a lot of times teachers might bring documentaries or music into the classroom. Concise writing style, right? Making sure that you have to write concisely. Okay, you have to identify, embed evidence. You have reading comprehension across various subjects. That includes your poetry. You're talking to someone who was not a fan of poetry. But I'm going to explain to you why you need to know your poetry. I know. I'm so sorry. Okay. Routine writing practice, that's self-explanatory, write every day, right? Expository essay and research skills. You got to have your research skill. I took my first research skills class in like the 5th grade. Okay. Proper writing technique and style, and of course, your vocabulary. You're going to hear me talk a lot about vocabulary. Okay. So these are the 10 broad categories that you need to basically advance in. And within each category, there are individual skills or tiles. Now, one of the things that I'm aiming to do is through your report cards, you would be presented with this, okay? Basically, it's a visualization of how you're progressing in various subtiles in these categories. So you can see those 10 categories on the left, right? So let's take reading between the lines, which is the second line. You have your syntax and diction, you have your history and social science, scientific technical context, okay? Drama, poetry, tone, illusion, da, 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 da. Basically, what we're aiming to say is that you're looking at this being like, oh, I got to work on my punctuation and my use of evidence, but hey, I'm actually pretty good at like spelling and building coherent arguments, right? That is what I'm trying to do, taking writing and bringing it down to a science so that when somebody asks me, how can I get better at writing? Because it's hard to answer that question, I can give you a visual roadmap. This is really what we try to do in our classes. And basically, after spending the intro series with us, we can give you a rough overview of where you are and then place you accordingly into a core class. Now, what is the core? The core is, I hate to put it this way, but I am going to put it this way. It's more reading heavy, okay? It's basically writing in the context of books. In the intro section, you'll be writing and then you'll be reading some short stories or articles that support your writing. Okay. So for example, writing a research paper, but maybe you'll read some primary documents or encyclopedia articles as evidence in your research paper. Whereas in the core, let's say you're in core 4, reading Pride and Prejudice and watching the movie, and then you would have to write a compare and contrast essay about that, okay? Or let's say you're in core 1 and you're reading Tom Sawyer. Tom Sawyer, which is actually a satire, right, written by Mark Twain. So you would be writing your own satire, right? So the writing assignments are embedded in the context of books. You're not reading books in the intro, okay? I started the core because a lot of families were asking, like, how can we incorporate books? You guys are a writing center. Can't you also do reading? And I'm like, fine, that's really fair. And so the core. Okay, so that is basically the main part of the ecosystem. And we have this thing down there called EWC Workspace, which I will be talking about a little bit later. But basically, it's for those students who are like, I have a huge paper coming up, or, I actually kind of created EWC Workspace because I was like, I really wanted this when I was in high school. Basically, I was really jealous of the fact that my classmates at Trinity, if they had a history essay and they need to get it graded, they could just go to their parents and it's like, hi, can you grade it? And I can't do that, right? My parents aren't going to do that. They're engineers from China or something, right? So I was like, who can I ask for help? Oh, and I don't have an older sibling. For those of you who have an older sibling, that's very kind. That's very lucky of you. I wish I had one. I'm an only child. But for EWC Workspace, you can submit to us a piece of writing, actually 4 pieces of writing per month, and one of our instructors will actually take a look at it and respond to you, okay, and give you that feedback that sometimes you can't ask your parents with. So that is actually a subscription product. We have 2 subscription products here, the Self-Paced Grammar and EWC Workspace, but that is basically an overview of the EWC ecosystem. You may notice that we have not highlighted EWC Journal. That is a summer-only product when students are reading and writing every single day for 6 weeks. I know, but it's actually really nice. I actually love to show you some of the work that the students wrote last summer. It was pretty amazing. So this is our ecosystem, and I hope that clarified some of the questions you might have about all our class offerings, okay? Now, at this point, I want to take you through a sample lesson. This is something that I do in my Intro 100 and 150 class, all right? It's about how to read, and we are going to look at it in the context of the Martin Luther King I Have a Dream speech. And I picked that speech because when I started my first class ever, it was Martin Luther King Day. So there you go, okay? Let me stop. How do I do this? Let me exit full screen right now. Exit full screen. Okay. Let's share sound. 1 second. April, can you let me know if the YouTube video is up?
The video is up.
Okay, so I haven't played it yet. It's up, so I'm gonna play it now. Okay. Teach you guys how to read, all right? So first of all, students, well, this is an example of a handout. The handout is basically the heart of what we do. Now, we give students handouts with blanks, frankly, that they have to fill out. Why do we do that? Well, if we just ask students to take notes on our lectures, you guys don't take notes, okay? And then when we give you our full notes, then you just don't pay attention. And that is why we do it halfway, okay? So think of these as guided notes, all right? Starting with how to read. That is the first lesson of Intro 100/150. Now, I'm actually going to stop sharing this presentation for a moment and actually take you to the handout. So let's start here. Give me a thumbs up to see if my handout is on the screen. Awesome, thank you. We're going to do an introduction to annotations, okay? I'm here to tell you that if you didn't annotate the text, then you might as well have not read it. It's really that important, okay? So let's take a quote below from Edgar Allan Poe. Who is Edgar Allan Poe? Drop it in the chat. If you don't know, Google him. He's very important. Great author, great poet. We actually read some Edgar Allan Poe in Intro 200 to 250. So great. Let us hear what he has to say. Marking a book is literally an experience of your differences or agreements with the author. It is the highest respect you can pay him. That is absolutely true. Why is it important to annotate text? Before I start typing, I want to give you guys one caveat. Jenny, can you drop the word caveat in the chat? If you guys don't know what a caveat is, check it up in the dictionary, okay? Look it up. I'm gonna be typing really quickly, all right? When I actually lecture at you guys, I will go slower, I promise, but we're gonna go fast here. So, number 1, why is it important to annotate text? Because active reading is thinking, and thinking tends to express itself in words, spoken or written, Okay. Also, reading a book is a conversation between you and the author. And marking a book is literally an expression of your differences or agreements with the author. Agreements with the author. Okay? That's why you guys have to annotate. So now you can ask me, well, how do you annotate? Annotate. Great question. All right. You can obviously underline. You could put vertical lines in the margin. Okay. You could put stars or asterisks in the margin. You could even put numbers in the margins, guys. Numbers in the margin, which indicates a sequence of points made by the author. You'll actually be pretty surprised, especially as like a history concentrator. I number a lot in my margins when I'm analyzing an analytical piece, okay? Because I want to see how the author develops his or her argument, okay? Now we also have numbers referring to other pages in the margins, okay? We may also circle keywords or phrases, and we also write in the margin, okay? Oops, circle in the margins, okay? Guys, you can also write in the margins, and I highly suggest that. You can ask questions. You can reduce complicated discussion. That's really important, especially in advanced writing. And you can also outline arguments. Again, this is also for analytical essays. I outline all my arguments, and I would number expository essays as well. Okay, really important. Now, what's the point of me telling you guys how to annotate? I gotta show you an example, right? So we're going to be looking at an annotated example of the MLK I Have a Dream speech, all right? This is really an incredible speech. I actually chose the I Have a Dream speech because it was just MLK Day, all right? So can I get a thumbs up if you can see my presentation again? Great, awesome. All right, so this is the 1963 famous MLK speech, and you're gonna ask me, how much should I annotate? Great question, guys, because this is the answer. I want you to take a screenshot of this, print it out, post it on a wall, then take your annotations, put it next to it, and ask yourself, am I annotating more, less, or the same as how much Jane annotated on the MLK speech? Because that is how much you should be annotating, not like one underline or one highlighted sentence. That does not count, okay? Yes, I have seen it, all right? This is how much you should be annotating. And let's take a look at what I actually annotate. So 5 score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. First of all, who's the great American who signed the Emancipation Proclamation? It's Abraham Lincoln. Yes, okay. Now, 5 score years ago. What's a score? It is 20 years. And you would know this if you looked at my annotations, all right? So a score is 20 years. So what's 5 score? It's 100 years, right? So why doesn't MLK say 100 years ago, a century ago? He says 5 score. And the reason is because he is echoing Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, which you should also find out if you read my annotations, all right? So in Lincoln's Gettysburg Address during the Civil War, he says 4 score years ago, and MLK, by using 5 score, is echoing what Lincoln said, okay? Symbolic shadow, we stand today. You can hear the alliteration, right? We signed, all right? All the S's. And now let's go further down in that paragraph, seared in the flames of withering injustice. Like, look how vivid that is. And I wrote vivid next to it. Seared. He doesn't just say burning, right? He says seared. Jenny, can you drop that in? S-E-A-R. Okay, that is a very good word as well. All right, and let's look at the following paragraph. 100 years later, 100 years later, 100 years later. I put parentheses around them, and I noted the use of rhetoric, right? It's very repetitive, 100 years later, and living on a lonely island of poverty. I'm in the middle of the third paragraph now. Lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. So think about it. Got a lonely island, a vast ocean, poverty, prosperity. What figure of speech is that? It is juxtaposition. If you could read my handwriting, it's juxtaposition. All right. So that is basically when you put two concepts that are completely the opposite of each other next to one another in order to highlight the difference. Okay. That is juxtaposition. Now, that is how I read the I have a dream speech. When you annotate it, you're going to engage with it differently. So your annotations will look very different, okay? But now I think you guys understand how to annotate, but I'm still going to make you listen to this history lesson now because I'm a history concentrator and this is like what I enjoy, all right? So I have a dream today that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that my four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. That is really, really powerful, right? Let me ask you guys a question. What's MLK's job? Like how he makes money kind of a job, and that's not quite being a civil rights activist. He was a preacher, right? He was a preacher and he was a reverend, and you can actually hear it. You can hear the preacher gospel like influence. You can see that in my annotations on the left. I have a dream, I have a dream. It's very like sing-songy in a way. And so I noted that. And actually, you'll see that I put a dotted line in the middle of the screen, and I wrote improv underneath. That's because the most famous part of the I have a dream speech was actually improvised on the spot. He is literally chanting with the crowd, all right? These are not prepared remarks. He's going back and forth with the crowd. Everyone's getting very riled up. It was all sort of done on the spot, which is pretty amazing, okay? And you could also see me interacting. All right, so that was my sample lesson on the MLK speech. Let me get my presentation back up. All right. Hold on 1 second. Let's see if this is. 1 second, guys. Thanks for your patience. Okay, April, can you just tell me if you can see my presentation again now?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Yeah, that was basically a lesson on how to annotate. And one of the things, there are a couple of things I want to mention there from that clip. Okay, number one is note how I emphasized vocabulary. That is so incredibly important, and it's something that we do in our intro 100 150 classes. Basically, there is vocabulary that you have to bring every single week. Yeah, I don't assign you to vocabulary. You have to find vocab words that you don't know, and then you're going to have to use them every single week. Basically, you're going to come to me with all these words that you don't know, and then you have to write a paragraph using all of those words. It's really, really important to build your vocabulary. So if you don't know what seared is, if you don't know what manacle is, if you don't know what juxtaposition is, this is the time to learn. Yes. Okay. So that is the first thing that I wanted to know. The second thing is you may have noted that I used a lecture recording or a recording from a prior clip when I taught the class. Now, all the classes are live. Okay. We actually have instructors who are teaching the class. Okay. But as you'll see in the EWC portal, just as a backup, in case you ever want to review the material, you also have me basically presenting all of the material that you've heard in class, but that is basically as a resource for you. Okay, so that is the second thing that I wanted to point out. And I really do want to emphasize just how important annotation is. It completely changes the way that you read and interact with the book, or frankly, a primary document, any document that you read. So I really do want to encourage that. I actually used to remember I had an instructor who was teaching Pride and Prejudice in class. She brought her book in and it was just like rainbow colored post-its everywhere. I mean, she was like a complete concentrate at Harvard. She loved her literature, and it really, really showed with all her annotations, which is really fantastic. So that is our sample lesson. Now, one of the questions you're going to ask, okay, is what is the difference between intro 100 and 150? I will answer that in just a second after I show you this slide, okay? Intro 100 and 150 is the same roadmap, but different reading level, okay? So both classes are going through part one. We're going to do how to read. Once again, we're actually reading a Kate Chopin story together, okay? Part two, we're going to write a sentence, a good sentence, okay? We're going to learn how to structure a paragraph, and then we're going to do an in-class personal narrative and an in-class biography, okay? Now, a couple of things here. Intro 100 is generally between the grades 5 through 6 or 4 through 6, and intro 150 is around 6th to 8th grade. That's generally how I split it out. So some of the stories, let's take part 3, how to structure a paragraph, right? The paragraph that you'll be writing in 100 is based on the short story, The Necklace, which is not a very difficult story to understand, but has some complexities involved. Now, the Intro 150 students will be writing a paragraph about Shooting an Elephant from George Orwell, which is a lot more advanced. One of the things you may notice here is that I accelerate all my readings, okay? What does that mean? That means the 5th, 6th graders are reading 7th to 8th grade material. The 7th, 8th grade materials are reading 10th grade material. And if you're a high schooler, you're reading college stuff, okay? So the reason why I do that is because I'm gonna go back to the math example again. You know how some of you are like doing AMCs? Not a math student, not bad. Actually, my best part of math was actually logic by far, okay? But you know how you get like 1 out of 10 questions right, and you're like, yes, best day ever of like my AMC. Imagine if you did that in like reading, right? If you got a 10% on reading, you'll be like, oh my God, this is horrible. But here's the thing. If you are understanding 100% of what you read, you're not getting better, right? So that's why I always say you want your reading understanding to kind of be in like the 70% range. Any lower than that is too hard and you're not understanding. Any higher than that, you're not learning. Okay, so this is my little spiel on like why we accelerate our classes and the difference between 100 and 150. Okay, now I'm highlighting parts 4 and 5, the personal narrative and the biography. Yes, there will be 2 classes that are basically writing in class. The reason why I do that is because it is so important to write under time pressure. It truly, truly is. I think that is something that's very underappreciated, but when you get to high school, everything is timed writing effectively, okay? So what we do is we spend one class talking about the personal narrative, and then you write it in class, okay? Then we spend one class talking about the biography. You write your biography in class. Very important to also think about pacing and outlining. And then those 2 assignments become the foundation for intro 200 and 250. Intro 100 goes to 200, intro 150 goes to 250, intro 150 does not go to 200, all right? So you have to think about it in terms of age groups, okay? Now, basically, the personal narrative makes up the first half of 200, 250. The research paper makes up the second half of 200/250. So what you can see is that we really go in depth after that, okay? This is going to be the first term ever that we actually will allow students to go into 200 and 250 without taking 100, 150. In the past, everybody has to start at the very beginning. This term, because so many people have actually asked if they could take 200, 250, I was like, okay, so many of you have asked, fine. But you will have to bring in a rough draft of a personal narrative or know that you need to get that ready if you're going to start 200, 250 with us, because that was the assignment from 100, 150. Okay. But that is basically the intro series. Okay. Now, I'm going to say this. I do play favorites. I think the curriculum on 200, 250 is the best one in the best one in EWC, especially the research part. Because again, history major, not English major, history major. I love the fact that it teaches research skills, right? Because I'm still a very analytical person. Like that was what I did for such a long time. So what we do is that we really break down the research paper. What is a thesis statement? And for everybody who says it's the summary, no, it's not a summary. It's also not even a main point. It's the main argument, okay? And you can see that we really break out the arguments in terms of claim and evidence, how to analyze the evidence, and of course, the intro and the conclusion. So I really, really wish that I had this curriculum back when I was in middle school. It would have saved me oh so many troubles in the future, but actually this is how we learned it at Harvard. So the only mandatory class that all Harvard students have to take their freshman year is actually expos. It's an expository writing class where you have to learn how to analyze evidence, and that was basically how we learned it. So I love this section. Okay, now calendar. I will get better at like showing my calendar on my website, working on it. Still one person here. But if you go on to airwritingcenter.com/calendar, you can see the PDF for the intro series. So this tends to be our most popular one. So we're running 2 sections to maintain small class sizes. It's going to be on Saturdays and Thursdays. And we obviously have sections for intro 200/250 as well. So you can find that information on our website. We also give you the full October, November, and December classes. So you can see exactly when the classes are. And also we of course don't have classes on Thanksgiving. So you'll see there is a break in that week. It will be for 10 weeks, 90 minutes per week. So you could think of it as 15 hours. And then we also have obviously homework, and graded assignments in addition to report cards that we will be giving you. So that is the intro series. Are we ready to talk about core? We're ready to talk about the core, but the intro series is really my pride and joy. It was the first curriculum that I ever developed. I forgot to mention, EWC develops all the curriculum from scratch. Because basically I looked at the textbooks and I didn't like them. And I was like, okay, then I'll just make my own. So there you go. We made our own, okay? Now, the core, kind of want to remind you about the core. It's more reading focused, right? It's basically writing assignments and analytical assignments in the context of books and poetry. Yep, that is right. So basically we have, or this is like a philosophy. I don't know if you can tell. I really like to go by philosophies. Okay. So there is a main text or book. And then we think about a theme for that book. That serves as the foundation. If you don't have a theme, sometimes the book's like, it goes all over the place, basically. We have a theme, okay? And then there are 3 assignments that come from that. You have an analytical assignment. You have a creative assignment. It's true, there is a creative assignment. And a debate, okay? At the end of the day, debate is just a persuasive essay in oral form, okay? Because you have to think about your argument. You have to think about how you're supporting that argument. You have to think about potential rebuttals, right? rebuttals, rebuttals, right? What is the other side going to say? How am I going to respond to that? What is my concluding statement going to be? That's basically a persuasive essay, okay? I actually think that's a lot more helpful than thinking 5 body paragraphs, intro, 1, 2, 3, conclusion. No, think about it as a debate. You're creating a logical argument for what you're trying to say. Okay. So that is basically our core philosophy. And this is our curriculum. So you are welcome to jump straight into the core if you want to read books. Okay. Most of our students progress from intro 100s to 200 through the course, but what you can see here is that we have poetry in cores 1, 2, and 3. That's about 2 classes. We also have it in core 4. I just couldn't get it to fit on here. But basically, we read Tom Sawyer and talk about satire, The Giver and Young Dystopia in core 1, Ender's Game and the Social Critique in core 2, along with Sherlock Holmes, which is so much fun. You get to write your own mystery and you get to ask if Sherlock Holmes is actually a hero or not. It's kind of cool. Core 3, this is when you start getting into the high school level, right? Fahrenheit 451. For all the middle schoolers out there who's like, I read Fahrenheit 451 when I was in like 5th grade. It's very different when you read it in high school because you have to think about things like censorship, right? So that is a debate topic. When is social media censorship right or not right? Okay. Farewell to Manzanar, which is about the Japanese internment, and you'll be reading some historical documents from, about the Japanese, frankly. Okay. So core 4 is going to be Pride and Prejudice. Again, you can see we're in like high school territory. We're going to be comparing, contrasting that with the BBC and Hollywood version. That's a very popular, popular sort of assignment, but it's like one of my favorite books. So that's why it's there. And the Odyssey, love the Odyssey, absolutely love the Odyssey because you got to know your Homer. You got to know your Homer. I know the Odyssey was written in Greek, but I actually took 6 years of Latin and like I love the classics. So there you go. And then core 5 is really hard. It's about Edmund Burke. If you don't know who Edmund Burke is, basically he was this like Enlightenment philosopher and sort of known as the father of the conservative mind. And basically you'll be reading his like primary documents from the late 1700s, early 1800s, comparing, contrasting the French and American revolutions and Twelfth Night by William Shakespeare. So what you can see is that by giving the core sort of curriculum, you're hitting everything, right? Remember our matrix? We really try to diversify our curriculum so that you're hitting all parts of the matrix, okay? Now, just to show you a little bit sort of what goes on behind the scenes, and you'll see this in the EWC portal a bit, there is a combination of PowerPoint slides that we run through the classes with our live instructors. And again, like everything, because we created all the curriculum ourselves, we go step by step. So say step 1, we have to analyze the prompt, write an essay analyzing one argument that Peter Seeger makes in his song, identify a satirical device, and we tell you exactly what satirical devices to look for, right? Again, trying to be analytical, bringing writing to a science. You can see how I do poetry in core 4. Actually, I taught core 4 over the summer. It was so much fun. Basically, I just want an excuse to teach Pride and Prejudice, but basically this is John Keats' Ode to a Grecian Urn, right? You could point out various rhetorical devices, such as rhetorical questions, ambiguity, heard melodies. Like, how cool is that? There's juxtaposition there. It's fantastic. And that is basically how we also go through the core. Now, remember I talked very briefly on debate. I will say this is not a replacement for a debate class, but it's just because you read the book, because you're analyzing it, we might as well like let you sort of talk about it, right? Of course. So we actually have a couple videos talking about the structure of a debate, intro to debate on your particular book as well. So for example, we have a lot of presentations about this, thinking about evidence, facts, judgment, testimony. And this is a really good example that I mentioned earlier about how we debate whether social media companies should censor their platforms or not. And they also have to read articles sort of looking at each of those cases, and you have to write your debate case, okay? Reasons to censor, reasons not to censor. We really want to take a book, not just like read it, but really digest it, understand it, okay? And internalize it. Internalize, what does that mean? Internalize. Internalize, okay? We want you to own it. So the person who actually created our core curriculum and our debate curriculum is Sagan, who unfortunately is currently on a fellowship. So she's not at EWC, but she was actually recruited into Harvard for debate. So she knows her debate, all right? And she created a curriculum for us. So we're so very lucky about that. And that is the core. The calendar is here, same website, airwritingcenter.com/core, same format, 10 weeks, 90 minutes per week. And you can find all of that information there. This is going to be the last sort of bulk, if you will. It's grammar. Okay, I know it's not fun. I'm so sorry. But it's so important. I feel like grammar isn't being taught in school nowadays, and it makes me really sad. I am a bit of a stickler for grammar. I know it's like so predictable. Actually, one of my interns this summer, he got me a cup that says, "I know you're silently correcting my grammar," and I'm like, yes, I am silently correcting it. Okay. So for example, when I ask students, how are you doing today? I don't want people to tell me you're doing good. No, I'm sure you are doing good, but you are doing well. You are doing well. Use your adverbs, not your adjectives. Oh, okay. But anyway, grammar. Right. So at this point, I am going to play another YouTube clip. This is actually from Sam Benkelman, who is still an EWC partner. He's still with us, but he is currently in Prague at BCG. For those of you who don't know it, it's in a management consulting company, but he graduated from Harvard with a concentration in linguistics and secondary in computer science. And he developed the entire grammar curriculum for us. So again, so lucky to have so many amazing people. All right, at this point, I am going to have him lecture at you a little bit about grammar. Okay, let's see. Okay, I can do this. Like, he was so good at grammar. I know he was so good at grammar for his college essay. He wrote about the Oxford comma. I know it's problematic, but he also won a Fulbright fellow of the Fulbright fellowship to Europe to teach English there. So he knows his grammar. Okay, I'm going to turn off my video and let Sam talk.
Welcome again, everybody. Really glad to be here with you. And yeah, I will go over several levels of grammar, talk about what we teach, and then give you some examples. So an overview of our 4 levels of grammar. Of course, grammar 1 begins right at the very beginning. So we don't assume any knowledge of grammar beginning in grammar 1. And the purpose in that class is really to learn the parts of speech, the 8 parts of speech, the categories of words in English, and to, with an emphasis on learning the verb tenses. This is a really big topic. English has a lot of verb tenses. In fact, it has more verb tenses than most other languages. And so they can be kind of confusing both on how to form them and how to or why to use them. So we spend a lot of time on that. And in general, building a basic vocabulary that will be a foundation, a cornerstone for your grammar going forward. Grammar 2 picks up right where grammar 1 leaves off and finishes talking about some parts of speech, but then quickly moves on to talk about phrases and sort of higher level structures in grammar. Phrases are really important. How do multiple words come together to do the same thing that one word can do alone, or it can add more detail to one word alone? And we then, at the end of that course, move to clauses as well, which is a larger structure. Grammar 3 is the first of the advanced courses, and it goes a bit more quickly than the first two. And Grammar 3 begins at the level of clauses. Um, what is a clause? How do we tell the different types of clauses, and what signifies them? And with clauses comes really the heart of uh, choices in writing. So we want students to understand sentential roles, subject and objects, clausal punctuation, how to combine clauses together. And we quickly find that there are many ways to do this. And so the question begins to be, what do I want to do as a writer? I can choose many different ways to combine clauses, to structure clauses. What's the best one for my purpose in this essay, in this application? And then that sort of rounds out grammar in terms of grammaticality. In grammar 4, we finish up sort of grammatical understanding and move on a little bit to style for the purpose of clarity in writing. So in grammar 4, we want our writing not only to be grammatical, but also to be the best it can be using grammatical knowledge. So choosing among 3, 4, 5 different ways to say something that are all fine, but one is going to be best style. So we talked about themes like avoiding common mistakes with style, avoiding ambiguity and redundancy, um, and making other choices. So really finishing off the grammatical knowledge and moving on to style. Okay, that was a lot of me talking about what these classes teach. Let me show you in a bit more visual way by taking a look at one sentence, and I'll just show you how each of the grammar courses might tackle this sentence. So this is a good English sentence. It's grammatical. Although the boy in the store is very nice, he has given him no money. This is totally grammatical. And if I were to look at this sentence in grammar 1, I might point out the different words in the sentence. What is the part of speech of each of these words? So the is an article. It's a special type of adjective. A preposition, we know what prepositions do, what they look like. We know what type of verb this verb is. It's a linking verb as opposed to an action verb, and we would learn what that means, why is important that it's a linking verb. It connects two things together. We know what an adverb is. We know what pronouns are. We know some features about pronouns. And then, of course, we would care a lot about the tense. This is an action verb in the present perfect tense, and we would know what that means, when to use it, etc. Okay, and then a noun. So that's grammar 1's approach or view of the sentence. Grammar 2 might look at this sentence and immediately start to look at some larger structures, like phrases. So we have a noun phrase here, the boy, and it's the subject of this part of the sentence, the subject. So the boy is a larger structure that comes together and means, it's talking about the boy, of course. It's every word that comes together and describes this noun, boy. So that's what a phrase is. Another phrase, a prepositional phrase. We care a lot about these in grammar 2. And we know that prepositional phrases are words that come together and actually do something that adjectives do, or do something that adverbs do. In this case, this whole phrase is coming together to work like an adjective. That's a special feature of grammar at this level. So we would know that. We'd talk about, okay, other phrases, and then begin again to talk about clauses as well. Talking about what the purpose of the clause is, how to identify it. And then another noun phrase. Okay. Grammar 3 would take a look at the same sentence and say, well, let's immediately take a look at a higher level. This is an a dependent clause. Okay. In grammar 3, we would say this is a dependent clause, and we know some other things about the sentence because of that fact alone. It tells us how to punctuate the sentence. It tells us we need a comma. It tells us what else we need in the sentence, right? And it tells us other things about the structure. For instance, this dependent clause begins with a subordinating conjunction. Conjunctions are extremely important in combining clauses and in grammar 3 in general. So we would say, okay, this is a subordinating conjunction. We would say, this is a subject complement, very nice. We would say that there is no object in this clause, but only a subject complement. We would say what that means. And then every dependent clause needs an independent clause. We could talk about this clause is in the active voice, which means we have a certain structure that we're looking for. And then we would see, of course, the subjects and objects as well. Okay, grammar 4 would then take a look at this sentence and say, well, we understand now the structure of this sentence. We understand how it works. Could it work better? Or could it mean something better? For instance, could the store be any less general, right? This is a noun phrase that is not general. It's not specific. Pardon me. It's general. So what type of store, right? Could I add any more details by saying Shopko or Target or Costco or something, right? What specific store? That might depend on the purpose of my writing. We would take a look at this phrase, very nice, and say that's overused. That is a almost cliche phrase. Both of those words are. And can we reword that? Magnanimous has some different connotations. It had some different emotion, some different detail in there. And we would take a look at this part of the sentence, he has given him, and say, well, that's technically grammatical, but it's ambiguous. The personal pronouns he and him have ambiguous reference. We don't know whom they refer to. So does he refer to the boy, or does him refer to the boy? And if so, then whom does he refer to? So we would say we need to fix that by restructuring the sentence. And other topics like positive language, avoiding negative language, things like that. Okay, so that has been a sort of visual of how these 4 classes might approach one sentence. I'll give you a bit more detail about each of the 4 classes now. You can see our 2 beginning classes here. These are the topics that we will cover in these classes. It's not an outline of every class, but only the topics. Okay, so you can see that in grammar 1, we care a lot about the parts of speech, and in particular, the tenses. Okay, tenses, this is what I'm going to share with you now. So a class that we do in grammar 1 will talk about what is the meaning of some of the particular tenses in English. One that's particularly difficult is the perfect tense. This is a tense that some languages don't have, but English does. So when do we use the past perfect tense? Well, if I'm telling a story in the present tense, now, right, it's saying I am doing this, I am doing that, and I want to talk about some event that happened earlier in time, then I can simply use the simple past tense. That's easy. What happens then if I'm telling a story that already happened in the past, and I want to say that something happened earlier in the past? That's where the past perfect can come in. So the text in orange here is in the past tense, simple past tense. Dad got back and found the door locked. The door was locked because, okay, so that's all the narration of the story in the past tense, simple past tense. Then we bring in our earlier event. Tom had run to the store to get some ice cream. Had run signals the perfect tense, the past perfect. And now it's very clear to us the order, the sequencing of the events in time. And so it allows us to be as clear as possible in English about when things happen. So that's a grammar 1 topic.
All right, let's see. Stop sharing screen again. Okay, I got this. I got this. All right. So that was Sam Benkelman teaching grammar. One of the things I will say about grammar one, I think we actually start off with like, what's a noun? And all the kids going to grammar one being like, oof, this is so easy. I don't want to take grammar one. And then they realize they know none of the verb tenses. So here's the thing, verb tenses is the number one thing that I see in terms of mistakes in students writing. It is really hard. I had a lot of difficulty with it. I think it's because in Chinese, there is no verb tense, I think. Not that I actually know Chinese, I'm just saying, right? So I think he did a fantastic job with the curriculum. In terms of the lessons, it's also very similar. There are handouts and worksheets, and basically you are typing along with the instructor, just as you saw in our how to read lesson, okay? So that is grammar. Now let me, oh, yep, pull up the calendar here. Again, it's on airwritingcenter.com/calendar. You can see that it's all on Sundays, okay? Now, unlike the other classes, it's only 1 hour per week for 10 weeks. And the reason is because nobody wants to do grammar for 90 minutes. We've learned the hard way. So when it comes to writing and reading with discussion, 90 minutes, that's okay. Grammar with something that's super technical, yeah, no one wants to go over 60 minutes, all right? So that is grammar. I hope that was a helpful overview of basically most of our EWC ecosystem. That is most of, actually all of our live classes, okay? So the intro series, the core and grammar. We do have grammar in a subscription format that is self-paced. Those are pre-recorded videos, but there is still a live grader. So the assignments will be the same. That is going to be an option if you want to enroll in that. I want to talk very briefly about pricing. I should have put a pricing slide up, but it's very simple. If this is a live class for the fall, it's $425. Okay, so it's $425 for every single class, whether it's grammar, intro, whatever. Okay. If it's a subscription product, it's $99 per month. So if you do EWC Workspace or if you do the self-paced grammar, that's $99 per month, okay? So those are the only two pricing options. Now, for the EWC portal, basically what I want to do is show you what goes on behind the scene from a technology perspective, okay? But before I do that, I want to give you a note on EWC Workspace. And this is actually going to address one of the questions that is in the Q&A chat from Anonymous. Is there a class that's available that focuses on college essay writing or some essay writing class? Basically, here's the thing, we don't do the college essay, okay? That is something that I decided on after spending a decade reviewing college essays. I really want to help and work with middle schoolers to focus on fundamentals. However, we do understand that sometimes you just want somebody to review your essay, right? Like you have a college essay, you want feedback on it. So that is an example of something that goes through EWC Workspace. EWC Workspace lets you send through 4 what we call ad hocs or edits every single month. And basically your personal statement, every edit could basically be, if you will, an ad hoc. That is not going to be an in-person section or anything, but we are going to give very detailed feedback, which is basically from one of our instruction team. So you'll know like who are the people. I mean, our team is amazing. We're like, for the most part, it's a fantastic team. You could check out our team page to get an idea of who might be reviewing the essay, but that is what we do offer. And I'm going to show you how the portal works from that perspective. So I'm going to stop sharing again, okay? And I am, oh, actually, you know what? I am going to reshare this because I'm going to show you a couple other questions that I'll be answering all while going through the EWC portal. One is, what does EWC Workspace looks like? The second is the huge question of, what class should I take? I know there's so many classes. I'm going to tell you where to go. Hint, it's on the screen, eyrereadycenter.com/placement, but I'll show you where it is on the EWC website and what happens if none of the existing class times work for me. I will also address that question, okay? Now, stop share, and I will pull up the website. Okay, so this is the EWC website that you're probably pretty familiar with, okay? If you go into enroll, okay, so this is Eyre Writing Center /enroll. Basically, there are term-based courses and monthly subscriptions, like I mentioned, okay? So if you want to enroll in an actual fall class, you would click on that lovely pumpkin over there, and it will take you to your courses, okay? So you have Intro 100, 150, 200, 250, and the 5 levels of core, as well as the 4 levels of grammar. Now, I want to show you what happens behind the scenes. So basically, once you purchase a product, you will see in your library, eyrereadycenter.com/library, basically all the products that you've purchased. So that way, you don't lose your class in a sense. You can see all of them here, okay? For Workspace, basically, we have these ad hocs, okay? So if you click on an ad hoc, you can see that you have your name, your email address, grade level, your subject, prompts, assignment, and people use them for personal statements. People also use them for like essay contests. We've had a bunch of students who would apply for let's say a writing competition, New York Times, Scholastic, Golden Keys, and actually a number of them won. I think one of our students won the creative writing, gold and silver keys, and a couple for a couple different pieces, and another one poetry. It was actually really cool. So basically, our team would review it in a reasonable amount of time. Actually, one of our students who was writing a book used this as well. So basically, you get 4 of these per month, effectively. Okay, so that is EWC Workspace. If you do Intro 100, 150, which is the most popular one, you look here. This is actually going to answer the second Q&A from Hiron. Hi, how are you doing? Basically one of the formats that we ran in the past was like a lecture and a section where I would lecture every weekend, and then there would be a section where students can do their homework together. I have actually decided to go back to the model of just live classroom in-class work. I actually think that was better for most of the students to absorb the material, because you know how I talk really fast? Yeah, that's why. But you would still have access to all the lectures that I've made. So for instance, let's take the example of mechanics of a paragraph, right? So you have an instructor who is going to walk you through all the material, okay? But just in case you want to review it, you can watch me talk about it. Should we watch me talk about it? Let's quickly watch me. All right. The paragraph needs to flow together. All right, so basically you still have the same like handouts. Instructors are going through it live. If you missed a class, or if you want to go back and review it, you have me basically doing this for all of Intro 100, 150, 200, 250. Yes, okay. So I hope that answered that question. Somebody also asked about recording. I think I answered that, but this is what I mean by recording. If you did miss a class on the core side, the grammar side, we will give you the recording for that class. But on the intro side, we rely largely on the lectures that I've already made because it's the same material. Okay, so that is the EWC portal. So that's the case. Oh, you know what? I'll show you 200, 250. So basically what you can see is all the syllabus material is here, okay? So we have homework assignment, recommended homework time, there's midpoint feedback and final report cards as well. Okay, this is where you will access the Google Classrooms. As for the Zoom links, you'll also find the Zoom links here. So basically, the EWC portal, everything will be on here. Everything will be on here, your Zoom links and your individual Google Classrooms. Now, and you can see like all the videos have already been done for these. That is the EWC portal. Now, I also want to show you quickly something from the core. The core is pretty fast paced. I'm going to say that right now. It's not for the faint of heart. There's a lot of material, poems, short responses, lecture videos, because we have to get to a debate, right, in classes 6 and class 7. So there will be a lot of supplemental videos to watch, presentations, and all the material, again, will be found here in terms of Google Classroom, and also your Zoom links. Everything will be on here. Okay, this is the EWC portal that happens in the back, and basically everything will be in your library. I obviously have access to all the products, but yes, for those of you interested in self-paced grammar, yes, we do have Sam Benkelman teaching most of the grammar. So that is also something you could take a look at, but we do have a Google Classroom. So somebody is recording it live. Her name is Madeline Walker, and she actually did it for the summer, did a fantastic job. Also study languages. I think it's in her case, Arabic and French. It was pretty cool. Actually, she's Georgetown School of Foreign Affairs, I think. And yeah, really, really fantastic. So that is what goes on behind the scenes in the EWC portal. Now, one last thing I do want to mention is if none of the existing classes work, then what? Basically, if you find a group of around 4 students, including you, so that's 3 of your friends, we will make a section that works for you. That's basically what it is. Okay. So if you have a group of people who is like, we all want to take intro 250, but we can't do Saturday afternoons. I think that's the time I want to do, Thursdays instead. We will do our best to accommodate and make that happen if you're able to bring your friends. So in those situations, definitely email us. Okay, enrollment is due September 26th at 5 p.m. That is when we'll know what enrollments look like, what class sizes look like, who are the instructors going to be. But we really, really appreciate your patience with all the logistics. I, again, am just like so blessed to have an amazing team who is able to help me like handle all the logistics. But I hope that was helpful. I hope that was a good overview of everything that we offer. And oh my God, I'm so proud of all of those of you who like stuck with me through the entire time, which is basically like almost everybody sits through the whole presentation. That's like almost 90 minutes. Oh my God, I'm so proud of you. Thank you for listening to me. Let's see, I have some questions to answer. 1, what are some of the ways to feel more confident while writing? Ooh, that is a very, very good question. So the wonderful thing about writing and not necessarily speaking is that here's the thing. If it's bad, no one's going to see it. Like no one is going to see it, right? But at some point, don't be shy. Don't be shy. I feel like that is I know it's easier said than done, but I feel like that is one of the reasons why sometimes it's very hard for people to learn foreign languages, right? If you're not scared of looking like a fool, honestly, that's how you become so good at languages. And that is, I've actually lived, okay, so when I was working in, on the hedge fund side, I actually lived in Europe for a while. So I worked for a hedge fund out in Munich. And there are a ton of polyglots. So what's a polyglot? Polygot. A polyglot is someone who speaks a ton of languages. I knew somebody who like spoke many people who spoke an average between 5 to 10 languages. And I can tell you, it's not that they're brilliant, it's that they weren't scared of looking like a fool. All right. Because you really don't need to know that much. You don't need to know like the subjective tense when you're trying to buy an apple from a grocery store, right? If you just go up to a cashier and you're like, apple, buy, like they'll get what you're trying to say. You might look silly, but at least you can communicate. And writing is really the same thing. It doesn't have to be war and peace to basically get your message across, because writing is just another form of communication. Okay. So actually what I want to do is I want to show you EWC Journal. To be honest with you, like again, I think I had mentioned this before, we're not running it during the school term because it's such a demanding it's such a demanding product. But basically students are reading and writing every single day, and we edit it before it gets published. So let's take this fantastic piece. This student, he read BBC, Washington Post, The New Yorker. Those are really difficult. That's stuff I read to this day, right? And basically, like, he would work on writing every single day. He would look at all the feedback that we gave him and basically improve on it every single day. And it's eventually able to like write a really amazing article about the politics behind, withdrawing from Afghanistan. I think he wasn't even in high school when he wrote this, right? So this is something that we do. And also we want positive reinforcement. We want people to read it, want people to like it. That is how you gain confidence when it comes to writing. And actually, you know what? I am going to drop that in the chat because honestly, the kids I'm so proud of everything my students do. And don't take yourself so seriously. Like, that's the other thing. I once made my students in quarantine to write about silly things that were happening on an everyday basis. Like Kevin, oh my God, Kevin's hilarious. Like, I've been obnoxiously bored. Like, that's hilarious. Just feeling the cold air is great, right? Like, it's just a lot of fun. At the end of the day, like, you should be having fun. And reading kids' quarantine diaries, oh my, Catherine's quarantine diary about like BTS, that's hilarious. Or Vincent's rant about like the quarantine. What was it? Let me start off by saying the quarantine sucks. It used to be fun because the amount of school is reduced and I have more time for other stuff. And I occasionally got to watch a movie, and it's like, and I have like a bajillion zillion meetings every week. That's hilarious, right? And so that's really what it is. Don't take it too seriously. Have fun doing it. And that is what's most important. All right. So hope I had a good, long, rambling answer to that. Does the library contain all grammar self-paced classes? Yes, it goes from 1 through 4. So that's why it's $99 a month. It's basically all grammar in a subscription. Okay, so hope that was answered. How many instructors do you have for all of your classes? We generally have between 5 to 8 instructors every single term. There generally is one instructor, so that is the person who will be teaching you live, and grader. We put all our instructors and graders online, so the whole team is there. It's not just that you see one person and like we have random graders. Like, no, it's this, everybody who touches anything that our students write is on our website. Sometimes a instructor would be both the teaching fellow and the instructor for a particular class, but we will not be finalizing the instructors until after enrollment because it really depends on what classes are running. If the class registration, if we don't hit a certain number in registration, which is around 3 to 4 students, we might not run the class. So it really depends in terms of scheduling, but all of that will be announced as soon as possible. We're talking to instructors in our pipeline, and it also depends on their schedules as well. So we really do appreciate your patience in the next couple of weeks. I know classes do start October 2nd, but enrollment is due on the 26th, which is next Sunday. So the sooner we know everybody's enrollment, we can then immediately place people and announce instructors. Okay, I think those are all the questions on the Q&A side. I'm going to open up the chat to see if I am missing anything. What can you do every day to become a good writer? To be honest, like EWJ was a response to that. EWJ was basically parents asking me, how does my student get better at writing? And I'm like, you read and write every day, duh, right? And then they're like, what are you supposed to read? And I'm like, New Yorker, the Wall Street Journal. I'm more Wall Street Journal than New York Times, but whatever. So the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, New Yorker, The Economist. The Economist is really important. The Atlantic, those are like 5 pretty basic magazines you should read. So I would always say that. Oh, and I have book reading lists, which I will put down in a little bit. And then they're like, okay, so that's what you read. Then what do you do for writing? And I was like, oh, okay, that's a good question. And then they ask, and who's going to check it? So that's actually why I created the EWC journal. Okay. Now, one of the things I'm going to say is that, first of all, EWJ is my most popular product, even though it's summer only. The psychology, because I'm really interested in children's psychology as well. The psychology, when it comes to not just writing, but literally doing anything, is why, right? You have to understand the child's purpose, because the child is going to be like, why are you asking me to write in my diary? There's no one's going to read it. It's not being graded. Why do I have to? Why? I wrote in my diary because it made me feel better, right? If I was going through a tough time, I'll be like, let me talk to my diary because I didn't have a sibling. Only child, right? So that was a purpose of writing. Now, you can find writing in other purposes on a daily basis. For example, kids, if you want more Minecraft time, because you want more Minecraft time, right? Write a letter to your parents. So parents can say no unless you have a very well-written letter. Parents are going to be really surprised. I always tell parents this. You'll be surprised at like how good the students are at writing when they have a purpose. It's like when they want something, they will pull out all the stops to get it, right? It's like, why should I get like that particular piece of stationery from Hello Kitty? Because that's what I wanted when I was a kid. Like that Hello Kitty stationery, even though I already have 100 of them, well, it's because, I use so many Post-it notes for my annotation, and therefore I need new Post-it notes. I don't know, things like that, right? So it is actually really amazing when you give a purpose behind writing. And so that is something I really, really encourage on a daily basis. And I hope that is helpful. Also, newspapers. I think I said that with EWJ. I'm huge on newspapers. Read, read, read. Time for kids. Okay, I'm going to give reading list and time for kids. Time for kids actually gives you nonfiction newspaper articles at your child's sort of reading level. I would go advanced because of my philosophy of like, go more accelerated to learn. Okay. Also, the younger ones have so many pictures in them. I'm like, that's not news, but that's just because I can be mean. Okay, so that's that. Explaining how the writing program works. I will put up this recording sometime later today, or tomorrow after the video renders, so everybody can rewatch it. And I hope it was helpful. So there, let's see, what is the date for grammar? It starts October 3rd, so it's on Sundays. Okay, it's only it says 1 hour per day. Can't see which date of the week. It's Sunday. If you go on the calendar PDF, it should tell you and mark exactly which days we have classes. Because of Thanksgiving, we don't have class that day, so we do highlight when the classes are. Hum. The hum is a new core. I'm just going to tell you that, but nice, like shout out on the legacy hum. Thanks for that. Yeah, we actually decided to switch over to the core. The old hum used to be one book per term, which I actually really liked. But the thing was that parents wanted more books in, like, if you're going to spend 15 hours, they wanted to read more than one book. So that's one of the reasons we developed the current core series. So, but the structure is actually very similar. It was just that I condensed it in such a way that you're still able to have analytical, creative, and a debate for every single book. That's why it's fast paced. Okay. So that, I hope, is helpful. Bye, Lucius. Okay, so those are the questions on the chat. Will you need your cameras on for class? 100%. That's not a class if you don't have your cameras on. I used to make my students also put their mics on, but then I realized it's like not realistic sometimes when everybody's in the same apartment. So you could kind of get away with that now, but yes, cameras on, and sometimes we ask to share your screen. So for all of you who have your YouTube videos in the background, it's not going to fly. Okay, I've been doing this for a long time. So okay, so this is another one, is a very popular question. If you have a let's say 6th, 7th, 8th grade student, should you start an intro 100 or do grammar in parallel? So basically, should you take 1 or 2 classes? I am going to give a very honest answer to this. Of our families, okay, during COVID, so basically when all the students are stuck at home with remote learning or schools aren't learning, I would say probably 30 to 40% took 2 classes, okay? And after COVID, I would say around 15 to 20% took 2 classes. So it really does depend on you. So one, it's clearly been done, but it really depends on your time schedule. I don't want you to rush through the material. Intro 100 is not easy. It's not. It goes from really easy to really hard, like fairly quickly. All right. So there's definitely a ramp up. When in doubt, take intro 100 because there are some grammar components in there. Okay. Oh, that reminds me, I wanted to show you the placement test. Okay. So if you're wondering what class to take, you can go onto www.eyrereadycenter.com placement. Whoops. Placement. Okay. And what you can see is that step 1, there is this diagnostic test. Okay. And if you look at it, it should take you about half an hour. Okay. The idea is that gives you an accurate picture of your knowledge now. 5th graders, please don't freak out. You are taking the same test as 12th graders. It's just where you are right now. Okay. So just don't feel bad if you get 1 right. That's totally okay. And probably should, frankly. Okay. So you've got part A, which is grammar, I guess, like basics. Part B, which is more difficult grammar, and part C, which more looks at reading and like language arts in a way, so figures of speech, message, etc. And basically you, like, the answer key is in step 2. Step 3, you choose what you want to focus on. So if you want to focus on, let's say, writing, okay, you are in the 6th grade and you got 0 to 9 correct, that would be intro 100. If, let's say, you wanted to focus on reading, okay, and on part C, you got this many correct, you will do core 2. Okay, for those high school students who are taking this and they want to focus on their reading, you get 10 to 12 correct. You have the choice of going into core 3 or core 4, depending on the books. Okay, so you may be reading that book in high school, you've read certain books, you want to read other books. These are a couple of different options for the high schoolers. If you're, let's say, a 9th grader who wants to focus on your writing, then I would recommend Intro 250 because the research paper really is the most important thing that you need to know in high school. Okay, so that I hope answered this. And anything else? I think we're all set. April, am I missing anything?
I think I'm good.
Oh, I think I'm good, but I did say I did promise you guys I was going to drop some additional chat information, some information in some links in the chat below. So I will do that right now. For those of you looking for the placement test, I am going to put that in right now. Here is the placement. If you want, when you're ready to enroll, here is the enrollment link. Let me see. I said I was going to give reading list. These, that's always fun. Okay, so let me go to, there are 3, okay? You could think of it for intro 100, 150, and also just like the high school level. So those are reading lists and time for kids. Let me also drop those links down. So open those links if you're interested in it, because when I close it, it's gonna get lost. I have a bunch of WeChat groups, so I'll also like be sure to post all of them there. But the enrollment is due September 26th. So wait, please can't see any chat that you sent. Oh, because I sent it only to, okay, got it. Thank you for that, Leah. Okay, so that's September 26th. These are our reading lists. Time for kids. Did that go through to everyone, April? I think, or because I think it did. Okay. I hope so. Well, if it's not, I just sent the links. Okay, awesome. You got them. Well, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate you hanging out with me. Oh my God, most of you actually stuck on this entire time. Thank you so much. Please enjoy your Saturdays and please enroll with us. We honestly could not do it without such an amazing community and support. And thank you. Thank you so much for making this dream of mine, this mission, this movement a reality. And I can't thank you all enough. I just saw another Q&A come in. Yes, absolutely. So that is actually a very common combination for those who sometimes take 2. I would take the placement just to double check if you're grammar 2 or grammar 3. So that is what I would say there. All right.
Jane, okay. Yeah,
Yep, that was for Sam.
okay.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you all. If there are any other questions, here is my email. Wow, I just wrote that in all caps. And my entire team has access to that. Of course, all the WeChat lines are open. Tidio, which is our Charlotte bot on our website, is also open for any questions. You feel free to do it in either Chinese or English. I will not be reading the Chinese because I can't do that, but okay. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye.